Hello everyone and welcome to today's stream. Thanks for everyone who's joining me today, and thanks for everyone who watched or who joined all the previous streams. If you are new here, my name is Mohammed Saeed and I'm a web developer at Laravel. And in this series of streams, we built a Laravel application together from scratch. It's an Airbnb-like application that allows remote workers to rent offices just like this one. People can make reservations on offices, they can cancel reservations, people can add offices to the system and they get reviewed by admins. It has a lot of features that need to be implemented, and we are using obviously the Laravel framework to implement these features. We are doing API first just because we want to focus on the back-end part first before we move to the front-end part. In this stream, we want to work on finishing the create office endpoint and update office endpoint, delete office endpoint, these endpoints that are around managing the office resource inside the system. And we are going to start right away because we have a lot to do and only 1 hour in this stream, hopefully only 1 hour. So we will get right into it. First, let me share my screen. And here we go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm looking at the chat and looks like we have a lot of people joining us today. That's great. Thank you guys for joining me. Let's start. So let's go to PHP Storm and take a look at the to-do, the things that we are going to work on today. Today we will start by making a little tweak to our application. An office, when it's submitted to the system, has a pending status by default. An admin must go there and approve or reject this office based on the attributes that the host provided. And we used to have a pending, approved and a rejected status, but I thought that we don't need the rejected status. It's either pending or approved, and if the admin doesn't like the entry, he can just leave it pending and send an email to the host to make the adjustments needed, or remove it completely if it's something inappropriate or so. So we will go ahead to the office model and remove the rejected status because we don't need it, and we will go to the office factory as well and remove this rejected status. We will go to the terminal and make sure our tests are running. PHP artisan test. Let's see. And all is okay. We are done with this. And now store office inside a database transaction. If we go to the office controller here, we can see that when storing offices inside the database, we first validate, we authenticate via middleware, and we authorize here. If the user has a token, we authorize that he can create offices. And we are going to validate the input and start creating the office entry in the database. And to do that, we run two queries, one to store the office inside the database, or the office table inside the database, and the other to attach the tags to the office. So two queries to store offices inside the database. It makes sense that we perform these two queries inside a transaction, so that if the second query didn't succeed, if attaching tags didn't succeed, the creating office will fail as well. So it's either all the queries succeed or all the queries fail. That way we don't leave our system in a state where some parts did run and other parts failed, and we will have some inconsistency. So to do that, or to get rid of that, we are going to store the office inside the transaction. So db transaction, and inside the callback we are going to paste our code here and fix that, use the use statement, and that's all we need. We create an office and we assign tags to it, and then return the office. And inside the transactions, with the transaction, we are going to expect the office, or take the office from the return value and pass it there to load it to the response. Let's see if we have our tests failing, and nothing is failing, all is good. And that way the transaction will run and both queries will run, or if any one of them fails, the other one will not be persisted to the database, which is the thing we want. Another thing that I noticed just now is that we are using the sync method, and the way the sync method works is that it goes to the database sorry about that. It goes to the database and finds the records that exist there, and then compares them with the one you provide, and it detaches the record that are not or doesn't exist in the new input. It detaches them and attaches the new records that exist. But since we are creating an office, that means there are no records or there are no tags attached to this office because it doesn't exist. So we don't need to use the the sync method here. Instead, we can use the attach method. Let's make sure the tests run, and we are good to go. The attach method is only going to send a single query to attach those tags to the office. It will not send another query to check the existing tags in the database. And that allows us to check this item in our to-do list, and we are good to go. Let me take a quick look at the chat and then get back to this. Hello from the Netherlands. Hi everyone. I love the Netherlands. I would love to visit Europe one day. Maybe after this pandemic, I will get to do that and meet all of you guys if possible. Hopefully in one of the Laravel EU conferences where all of you guys go there. I hopefully one day I will be able to go there and meet all of you. Please increase the font size. All right. Let me go there. Screencasts. Apply. Okay. I think that's good enough. Let me know. All right, we have no questions. Let's get started. Now that we have the create endpoint done, it's time we start working on the update endpoint. And the update endpoint follows the theme as the create endpoint. We are going to verify that if a token is used, it must have this scope, and there is an authorization check that we need to add that a user can only update their own offices. And there is the validation. We have this already from the create endpoint. And if a user is updating one of his offices that are already approved by the admin, we need to mark these offices as pending so the admin can approve the new changes. So that's something that we need to work on. And we will not only mark the office as pending, we will also notify the admin that this office was updated and was marked as pending. You need to review it and decide if you want to mark it as approved or not. So we will need to send a notification here. So first, let's work on the parts that are pretty obvious with creating or with updating an endpoint. We need to go to the api.php file and add another endpoint using the put php method or HTTP method. So put offices, office ID or office, and it is going to direct to the office controller and the update method instead of the create method. And we will use the Sanctum authentication middleware and the verified authentication middleware as well. So we are going to the office controller and creating another method called update. This method is going to receive an instance of the office that needs to be updated thanks to the route model binding done by the Laravel framework. This will be done automatically for us. We don't need to change anything. This method is going to return a JSON resource, and it will have all these common things here. We will validate that the user can, or if the token is provided, this token can update an office. If not, it's going to return the HTTP forbidden response or 403. And we are going to validate the input from the user. And after that, we will update the office inside the database transaction, because we are going to update the office record itself and synchronize or sync the tags attached to this office using the sync method. And then we are going to return the office itself. So this part is just the same, no need to change anything here. And this part can be copied and updated as such. We are going to expect or read the office from the route model binding, and instead of the create method, we are going to update, and no need to assign a variable here. And we will use the sync method here, no need to return anything. And finally, we are going to load these relationships on the office model before we return it. So this should be enough for updating our office record. But one thing here is that while creating the office, we expect the title, description, latitude, longitude, and the address and the price to be provided, required. It's a required field. But while updating, if the API user only wants to update the title of the office, for example, they don't have to provide all these required attributes. So we want the required rule to only be applied if the attribute is provided. So if the user provided a title, it must be filled. If the user provided a latitude, it must be filled. But if the user didn't provide any of these required attributes, they don't have to be used, or they don't have to be filled at all. So there are two ways we can do this. We can call the filled method, the filled validation rule, and this will make sure that the attribute is filled if it is provided. And this will take care of the problem that I was just describing. But that's not the solution I'm going to go for, because if you can see here, we have all this duplication code that's similar, like updating is very similar to creating. We have a lot of similar code between the create method and the update method. I don't mind, or it's usually okay to have this kind of duplication, because here we are using the update method while here we are creating, and here we are using the sync method while here we are attaching. So abstracting this part is not really gonna help us achieve anything. It will make us maybe feel smart a little bit, but it's a waste of time in my personal opinion. We don't need to abstract this. But for the validation rules, it's really bad that we have to maintain the same type or two sets of the same validation rules. What if later on we decided to add an attribute, or we decided to add another rule to one of the existing attributes, and we provided it here and forgot to provide it here? And because we don't test, or I personally don't believe in testing validation rules, because I trust the framework will do its job and the validation will work as expected. We don't test this, so if we apply some rules to this set of rules and we don't apply it to this set of rules, it's going to cause problems for us. We will have inconsistency in our application. So abstracting the validation part is valid to me. That's something that I think that we should do. We are going to extract the validation rules to its own class and use this class with the create method and the update method as well. And this class, I like to call it a resource validator. A resource validator is a class that accepts a resource and some input, and it's going to validate this input, return the validated attributes, or throw an exception if the attributes are not valid. So this is what we are going to do. So let me take a quick look at the chat. Hello from Philippines. Please increase the font size. I just increased it. And hello from Serbia. Hello there. No questions. So let's get started. We are going to the models directory and we're going to create another directory and call it validators. Validators. So you can call them model validators or resource validators, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to create a PHP class inside the validators directory and I will call it Office Validator. Inside the new class, we are going to have a validate method, and this method accepts an instance of the office and the attributes that should be validated. And at the end, it's going to return those attributes. So the return type is expected to be an array. So this is the office validator. We are going to copy all these validation rules. We are going to copy this, all this part, and let's not return attributes. Let's return the result of the validator instance, which will return all the validated attributes, which is an array. So we will return an array at the end. And instead of validating here, we are going to create a new instance of the office validator, and we will call the validate method. Inside the update method here, we will provide the office instance and the input that is coming from the request, so request all. So here the validation will happen and we will receive the validated attributes that we will use to update the office record. Same applies here. We are going to replace this entire chunk of code with the office validator, but because we are creating an office, we don't have an office instance here. It is created right here. So what we're going to do is create the office instance here, just a blank office instance, and assign to this variable, so equals new office here. And we will pass this office instance to the closure and use it to create the office. And make sure that we are assigning this office to the authenticated user, so the office belongs to the authenticated user ID. So auth ID. and now I think we have something working. The validator will validate the attributes, return them, we will mark the approval status to pending, and we will assign the office to a user ID. We will pass all this data to the database transaction. It will create, here we want to fill and save, not create, I think. Let's go to the model.php file and see the create method. Where is the create method? It's part of the builder, Eloquent builder, right? The create method, here you go. Yeah, it receives attributes and it creates a new model instance from these attributes, but we already have an existing model instance. We don't have to create a new model instance, so we will not use the create method. We will use the fill method to fill the attributes of the existing office instance that we created here, and we are going to save it. Now let's run the tests to make sure that everything is working, and we get an exception. Let's see. Call to a member function tags on pool, yes, because we don't need to assign this here. Let's run the tests again and all is good. We abstracted, or we took the parts that's related to the validation and put it in its own class. That way we don't have to duplicate the validation part of the code. We are going to put all the validation rules inside the office validator. Perfect. Now let's work on the update office, or writing a test for the update endpoint. Let's just copy the test that creates, and let's close this, and it updates an office. So we are going to have an office equals office factory for user. We don't need that, so we have the office for user, and this office is going to it's going to have let's create the office, and we will attach tags to this office. So we are going to attach these tags to this office, and we want to update this office. So here, office ID, and we are going to try to update only the title of the office and call it amazing office. Let's see the response that we will receive when we run this test. So let me copy the test class name, go to the terminal, php artisan test filter equals, and we will run this test only. Let's run it and see what we get. Yeah, the post method is not supported. We need to use put. And here we go. We receive validation errors because the fields are required while we are only providing the title field. The other attributes are required, as I explained earlier. So let's fix that. We will go to the office validator, and instead, or in addition to the required rule that we have here, we are going to use the rule when method, and the condition here is if the office exists already. We are not creating an office, it's an existing instance, it's not a new instance. We are going to apply the sometimes validation rule. What this rule does is that it says, or it tells the validator, the sometimes rule when added to an attribute, it tells the validator this field is only required sometimes, and by sometimes it means it's only required if it is provided. So Adding the sometimes rule to a set of rules on a specific attributes tells the validator to only apply the required rule if this field is provided. So if it's provided, it can't be empty, but if it's not provided, don't apply the required rule and just skip it from validation. So that's why we are using the sometimes rule, and we are going to use it with all the fields that are required. So here and here, this one is required as well, and this one too. Let's keep all the required fields together just so we can have a visual separation between the attributes that are required, the ones that are not required, and the validation or the relationship attributes. So that's what we are going to use. Let's run the test again and see what happens. We get an error. Let's see what this is about. Undefined array key tags inside office controller. So let's go to the office controller and array key tags here. So this is failing, I think, here because we are not providing tags. So we only want to attach tags if tags are provided. So if is set tags, we are going to sync those tags. I think we should do that as well here. If there are tags provided in the input, we should attach them. If not, we shouldn't. If we run the tests again, and we can see the office returned to us and the title was updated with the input that we provided. So office controller test, we here provided that we wanted to update the title and make it amazing office, and we need to assert that this is what we got. So here we need to assert that the title was actually updated to amazing office. No need for this for now. And let's not assert anything in the database. Run the test again. We get an error. Yes, assert OK, because the response code is going to be 200, not 201. So it should be assert OK. Let me take a quick look on the chat to see if there are any questions. Why don't you use form requests? As I explained in the other stream, let me go to the controller. With form requests, you have to type hint or add an argument here with the form request that you want to apply to the controller method. And for that, and imagine that you are looking at this application after a few months, or someone else took over the application and is working on it. Detecting that this method is using a form request is quite hard. You have to look at the arguments provided to know that this method uses a form request. That's something I don't like about form requests, is that you have to type in them, and obviously I miss catching them, and I look at the controller method and I start looking at line number 1, and that's all I think about. I don't see anything. I don't see the validation, the authorization rules that run inside the form request. So it's a personal preference that I don't use form requests. You are not using the attributes variable in the office validator. Let's go to the office validator. Ah, yes, we shouldn't use the request all here. It should take all the attributes from the data that is provided. Let's run the test. It's working. Let's run the entire test for the office controller to make sure that we didn't break anything, and we didn't. Thank you, Davor. Thank you, Davor, for this. And we could actually read the input from the request if we want, but I like to keep the validator isolated, because maybe like imagine you write a console command that creates offices, and you can use this validator to validate the input provided inside the console. So in this case, there will be no request and no request attributes. So I will accept the attributes passed to the method instead of the ones coming from the request, because if we want to use this class outside the scope of a request, we can do that because we don't refer to the request or anything. We don't refer to the request class anywhere in this office validator. What's the use case of the office? I think it's pretty obvious. We use it to make sure that this office exists. We are updating one, and we are not creating. If we are updating, we are going to add the sometimes rule. If we are creating, we will skip this part. So that's why I passed the office attribute or the office parameter. What all this mechanism is called, validation separated in a class. It doesn't have to be called anything. Like, I know that when you read about coding best practices and solid principles and design patterns, when you read this stuff, you want to apply these things in your application as the book says. And if you have any idea about any reformatting or any refactoring of your code that you cannot think of a name for, you think that it's probably a stupid refactoring. I don't agree with that. Not everything has to be a design pattern that has a name and exists in a book that's written by someone. It doesn't have to be that way. You can build applications the way you feel are right for you, as long as you consider other people who will be working on this application, and you consider yourself in the future when you take a look at the application, and it will make it easier for yourself to figure out what's going on in the code. So if another colleague took a look at this method, this controller method, he will easily detect that we are creating an instance of the office validator and calling the validate method. We provide the office instance and the input coming from the request. So it's easy for him. He can just read the controller method and see that we are using this class. It's not something that will be confusing to them. So we don't have to use a design pattern that's well known to everyone to make the code easier to read and easier to maintain. It's just a plain PHP object called office validator that has one method, and we are calling this method. It doesn't have a name, or there is no name for this pattern. All right, so no questions, no other questions. Let's move ahead. Let's check the todo and see what we did so far. Must be authenticated. We are applying the middleware. Must allow the office update. Validation is done. So we only have these two parts remaining. Can only update their own offices. And for that, we need to create a policy. So let's go to the terminal, call PHP artisan, make policy, and we call this policy office policy. Now we go to the office policy, this class, and we don't need a constructor. Let's remove it. We will create a function called update, and the first parameter is going to be the user instance, so user, and the second one is going to be the office instance, so office. And what we need to enforce here is that the user ID matches the office user ID. So this will return true only if the office that is being updated belongs to the user that is currently logged in. So if we go to the test, office controller test, and we run the tests. Yeah, let's go to the terminal and run the tests. Oh, sorry. office controller test. We have all passing. Let's now try to update an office that doesn't belong to the user. It doesn't update office that doesn't belong to user. So no need to provide tags here. It's not attached tags. So office, another user. Let's create another user. This office belongs to the other user and we are acting as this user. We are trying to update this office, and let's see the response that we get. So dd response JSON. Let's run the tests, and we see that it passed. It shouldn't pass. Now let's go and make this work. So office controller, and inside the update method here we will call this authorize, and the ability here is update. And for the arguments we are going to provide the office model that we get. So let's see, the test throws an exception, and this exception is this action is unauthorized. If we see the response code that's returned, status code, and the status is 403, which what we expect. So we have this covered. So assert status 403. Let's run the office controller test again, and we have all passed. So if the user is the owner of the office, they can update it without a problem. But if they are trying to update an office that belongs to another user, they will get a 403 response. This action is unauthorized. Now there is something that I want to test here, which is attaching tags, right? So this office is already attached to these tags, these two created tags. Let's have more tags. We will create two more tags, and inside the endpoint here we will provide some tags. We will take the first tag from the first set, the ID of the first tag, and more tags. We will take also the first tag, or let's just have another tag, one more tag. So factory tag create, so the another tag and ID. What we expect to happen is that this office already is attached to those two tags. We want to add another tag, or we expect we will add this new tag, and the office will only have the first tag from the two tags that it used to have, and the second tag will be dropped because we are not providing it here. The sync method should take care of that. So let's do that. We will assert count. The count should be 2, and the pass is data tags. So we expect only to have 2 tags, not 3, because we are providing 2 tags. It already has 2 tags. It will detach one and add another one, so we expect to have 2 tags. If we have 3 here, it will still have 2 tags because it will detach 2 tags, keep the first one, and attach the new tag. So let's run the tests again, and it's still passing. Now let's make sure that the assert JSON path, the path here is data tags. The first tag, ID of the first tag is this one, just to make sure that the tags we have are the tags that we expect. The ID of the second tag is this one. Let's run the tests, and we are good to go. The sync method detached the tags that we are not providing in the update attributes, and it's attaching the new one that we provided. So it's all working out great. Now let's go to the todo, and we have this covered by using the authorization check. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Could not understand this. Another tag? You mean the office controller test? So here, yeah, another tag. So this office is already attached to 2 tags, all right? And we created another tag. It's not attached to this office. What we want is provide a request or send a request to the application that has the first tag from the 3 tags that are already attached to the office. So only the first tag, and another tag that's new, it's not attached to the office already. What we expect is that Ergodnc or Laravel is going to keep that first tag. It's already attached, it's going to keep it, and remove the 2 other tags that are attached because we updated the tags attribute. It's going to detach those tags and add the another tag to the set of tags that are attached to the office. And that's what we asserted. I hope it's clear by now. Yeah, we can use HTTP forbidden in the test as well. So response, I think HTTP forbidden. Yeah, it's okay. Let's see here as well, and we are good to go. Now let's see what else do we have here. Mark as pending when critical attributes are updated and notify admin. Let's first go to the terminal and commit the changes that we just made. We go to the office controller and take a look at what we have. So here the create method and the update method. What we want to do is if the user is updating some of the attributes, we need to put the office in review so the admin can review it first before users can make reservations on this office or for the office itself to appear in the search results. So what we are going to do here is detect the changes, and based on the changes we are going to update the approval status. And to do that, we want to extract this part outside. So office fill instead of update, we will fill the office with the attributes coming from the request and save the office inside the transaction. The fill method doesn't touch the database, it just fills the attributes of the Ergodnc model instance, a PHP object. It doesn't communicate with the database. So we will move the fill method outside. And after filling the attributes of the office, we will check if any of these attributes is dirty. And by dirty, we mean is touched, is changed, is updated. So if any of the attributes that we are going to provide to this method is dirty, then fill the model and update the approval status, make it office approval pending. These attributes, let's go to the office validator just to see the attributes that we think should change the approval status. The latitude, the longitude, the address or price. Of course, the price per day should be validated, and maybe the address. Oh, or no, I think just this is enough for now. The latitude, the longitude, the price per day, if any of these attributes is changed, the office model will have the approval status equals to approval pending, and when it's persisted in the database, the model will be marked as pending, so the admin can need to review it first before it appears that as approved to other users. Just taking a look at the chat to find if there are any questions. Does the authorization check works with Sanctum token? There are actually two checks here. One that covers the Sanctum token. We need to make sure that this token has the Office update capability. And the other check here is to make sure that the current logged in user, whether it is using a session-based authentication or a token-based authentication, whoever the current logged in user is allowed to update this office. So yes, it covers that. Should we use Lumen or Laravel? Laravel. I'd use Laravel for anything. Always Laravel. That's my personal opinion, of course. So we are done with this part, and we need to first run the tests to make sure that we didn't break anything. And we're good. Now let's go to the Office controller test. Office controller test to test this part. Well, what we want to do here is make sure that it what should we call this test? It updates, or it marks the office as pending if changed, or let's call it if dirty, because given the chat, I think dirty is a funny word and you guys like it, so it marks the office as pending if dirty. Let's update the test for user here, acting as user, and we want to update the latitude because that makes the model dirty. Let's take a look at, let's take this latitude and just make it something different. So here, let's change this to 10, anything, or just let's do 40 here. So if we are updating the latitude, we expect the test to pass. So assert OK here. Let's make sure assert OK. Run the tests, all is passing, but we expect the model to status to be pending approved, so or pending approval. So let's check the database. This assert database has the table is offices, and the attributes we want to check are the first, the ID, which is the office ID, and the approval status should be updated to office pending approval. Let's run the tests and we are good to go. If we provide the latitude attribute, the office will be converted, or the status of the office will be converted to pending approval, and we assert that from the database. Right? That's all we need. We can mark this as done, except that we need to notify the admin, so we will do that. A quick look at the chat. All right, let's notify the user, the owner, and to do that we will create a notification. Let me think about something. Yeah, we will create a notification class. So PHP artisan make notification, and we will call it off. I am the king of typos. Notification, and we will call it office pending approval notification. Now let's go to the notification, office pending approval, and yeah, we will just send it as a mail for now. Yeah, we will send this notification as a mail, but we did it with a notification instead of a mailable, because later on, if we instead want to notify the admin via SMS, via Telegram, via chat, via Slack, we can do that easily by just defining new channels for the notification to be sent to. So we will start by only sending a mail, and then we will later on add any channels we want if we want. So I will not bother with that right now. I just want to make sure that the notification is sent, and then we can take care of the content of the notification later. So we will go to the office controller, and we will send the notification after we persist the record in the database. And to do that, we will store the result of this method is dirty inside a variable. We will call this variable is dirty equals, or let's make it more explicit, requires review. And if the model requires a review, or if the change requires a review, then we will use the notification facade to send a notification to the admin. Let's make the admin one with ID 1, user with ID 1 is the admin, or just to make it a little bit easier for us to test for now, we will have a user with ID 1000, we will consider this the admin, and the notification will be office pending notification. What did we call it? Office pending approval notification. We will probably need to pass the office instance to the constructor here, office here, public, and we will provide the office instance here. So if this update requires a notification to be sent, if it requires review, we're going to send a notification to the admin. Probably finding the admin in the system should be more smart than just finding an admin with a user with ID 1000, but just for the sake of testing this now, we will just use this as an example. We can refactor this later and figure out how we want to identify the admin in the system. Let's run the tests to make sure that nothing is broken. And of course something is broken because there is no user here, user in the system with an ID of 0. Let's just make it 1. Let's make it 1. We still have an error on null. Let's go to the test, controller test, and check the user created. It should have an ID of 1, right? ID 63, no. So we just need to make sure that there is a user with ID 1, user find 1. There is no user with ID 1. So let's just create a user here, user factory create, and this user is going to have the name of Mohammed, and here we want to find a user first where name equals Mohammed. This should take care of it, and it passes. So we will consider the user or the admin in our system is one with name Mohammed, and we are going to create this user while running the test, and this should take care of sending the notification to this user. Later on, I think we will need to add an isAdmin attribute to the user model so we can easily identify who is the admin in the system. Alright, so we need to test or to make sure that the notification is sent. And to do that, we can use the notification fake facade, and inside or here, notification facade, assert sent, assert send to, so we will send to this admin, assert a notification was sent to the admin, and the second argument is the closure, and I assume let's just check the documentation because I don't remember, so we will check testing, testing, no, not HTTP tests, browser testing, database testing, mocking, right? Mocking notifications, notification fake. So fake notification and assert send to the user, and the second argument should be the name of the notification. No need to provide a closure. So office pending approval, office pending approval notification class. So we will here assert that a notification or the office pending approval notification is sent to the admin. Let's run the tests to make sure that the assertion works, and it works. We are asserting that a notification was sent to this user. Let's make the same assertion while creating an office as well. So here, that's the admin. We need to assert that a notification is sent on creating a new office as well, not sent to the admin. So here we will call notification fake and make sure that the notification is sent. If we go to the office controller here, we should copy this part and paste it here to send the notification after the office is created. Now let's run the tests, and it's all passing. If we go to the to-do, we can mark this as done and mark this as done as well. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Where the policy created is used? Yes, it is used. Because it's called the office policy, Laravel will match it to the office model. So when inside the controller, office controller here, when we check this authorization, Laravel is going to check the type of this resource, and it's an office resource, or we'll see if there is an office policy inside the policies directory here. So app policies, it will find an office policy, so it will use this policy to run the authorization check. So it's done behind the scenes. We don't need to call or define the office policy by hand. Laravel takes care of that. I have learned from Senior that these notifications should not be in controller, they should be in queues. You can send the notification from inside the controller, and the notification itself, inside the notification you can implement the should queue interface, and that will make Laravel dispatch the notification inside the queue, not inside the controller. So calling the notification or sending the notification from the controller, it's completely fine. But if you don't want your users to wait until the notifications are sent, you can implement the should queue interface, and the notification will be queued rather than sent at the same time. So we here have the tests passing. So all you need to do is just implement the should queue interface for Laravel to send the notification in the queue. You don't have to create a job that sends the notification. You just send the notification and mark it as should be queued. The todo file here is just a markdown file inside PHP Storm. Nothing special about it. I'm not using any extensions. So that's all that I need. Now let's quickly move to the delete office endpoint. So we go to the office controller and create a new method. It's called delete. It expects an office instance office, and it will have also these checks here. Make sure that the token can delete an office and the user can delete an office. Let's go to the office policy, copy this and make another method called delete that has the same rules, that the user must be the owner of the office to be able to delete it. All right, so now we have these parts covered. What else? Nothing. We just go ahead and delete the office. So office delete. Let's check the todo to make sure if there are anything else must be authenticated. We will apply the middleware. Let's go do that. api.php delete this office, calls the delete method on the controller, and have the middleware for the authentication and the email verified added as well. So this item in the todo is done. Token must have the office delete. Done can only delete their own office. Done cannot delete an office that has reservations. This is something that we need to work on. So office controller, we need to first check if the office has any reservations where, let's see the reservation migration, the column is called status. If this has any reservations where status that has a status of reservation status active, so if this office has any reservations that are active, you shouldn't, or we shouldn't be able to delete them. We will throw a validation exception instead. Illuminate validation exception with messages, and we will provide a message that says cannot delete this office. All right, this should take care of it. Let's go and write a test, office controller test. Let's first verify that a user, it can delete offices. So let's copy this part here, acting as, and the endpoint. User can delete their own office. So delete. Let's remove this and assert OK. Run the tests, and is identical to 302. We get a 302. Why do we get a 302? Let's comment this to make sure that it's not the one returning 302 and it's working. Why this office seems to have reservations, so let's run this test in isolation. It can delete offices. Let's see the office here. Yeah, because we are not having this condition right. The where method returns a builder instance, so when the if builder, it will evaluate to true because the instance exists. It's not null, it's not zero, so it will evaluate to true. So we need to just fix our query here. So if the status, or if there are any reservations that exist with these conditions, throw the validation error. So let's run the test again, and it passes. Now let's go to the tests and provide a test that shouldn't pass, should throw a validation error. It cannot delete an office that has reservations. Office that has reservations. So let's create some reservations for this office. So reservation factory, let's create 3 reservations for this office. Create, and because this one doesn't have any reservation, this one has reservations, this shouldn't pass. So assert status code, assert status 3 or 2, because we expect a validation exception. So let's run the tests and it passes. We get a 3 or 2, and we need to verify that the model doesn't exist. So this assert model missing, and we will provide the office model. I think this will fail because the model exists but it's deleted. Let's take a look at the office fresh to get a fresh instance from the database. Oh, the model wasn't actually deleted. Why? So this test is asserting okay, but it doesn't. If we provide this assert model missing, so this should be assert model exists. We expect it to exist. We will have an error with the it can delete offices because the office exists. It just is soft deleted. So we cannot use assert model missing and assert model exists because we will not actually delete the model from the database because they are soft deletable. I wonder if there are any assertions. Assert soft deleted. Yes. Let's run that. And we are good to go. Assert soft deleted. Now here we need to assert that it's not soft deleted. Soft deleted, assert not soft deleted. There is no assertion for that. I think if you want to contribute to the Laravel framework, I think we need a method to assert that a model is not soft deleted. We have an assertion to assert that a model was soft deleted. There is a method that's missing to assert that a model was not soft deleted, right? So let's change this until someone contributes to the framework with this helper method and assert database has the offices table. It has an office with ID equals to the office ID, and it has deleted at equals null. Let's run this test and it passes. So it cannot delete an office. We made sure that it returns a 302 and that the office wasn't deleted from the database. The deleted at equals null, while in this test it asserts it can delete the office. It returns okay, and the office was soft deleted inside the database. So if we go to the to-do, we can mark this as done. And this is all related to the office resource. Let me take a quick look at the chat. Yeah, there is throw if. Yeah, nice one. So office controller. Let's try the throw if here. Throw if the condition blah, and then we will throw this one. So the condition should be this, and let's do that. Run the tests and they're good to go. So nice little helper, little Laravel helper here. Throw if expects a condition at the first argument and the exception that you want to throw if this condition is evaluated to true. So thanks Adrian for this step. I think if you pass office class, office will assert that deleted at is null. I don't really understand what you are implying, so maybe send a pull request to the repo with this change so I know what you're talking about. and we are, looks like we are good, no questions. That was some really good productivity today. We finished all what's related to the updating or creating the offices. Why not check if the office has reservations before delete directly in the office policy? I don't think the office policy is the place to check if the office can be deleted or not because it has reservations or not. I think the policy should only be used to verify that a certain user can perform a certain action. It's not related to the state of the resource. It's related to the user and the resource itself. If the user can perform this action on the resource, no matter what the state of the resource is. That's my point of view. Oh, nice. So if we go to the office controller test and we use delete JSON instead of just delete, here delete JSON2, the response code will be 422 instead of 322. 422. Let's see. And you're right. You are right. Response 422. Do we have a 422 here? 423. Let's go to the response status or not found. So let's just check of 422. Yeah, unprocessable entity. Here, unprocessable entity. From the test, we get an unprocessable entity. What's the 302? HTTP found. Okay, yeah, I think it's wrong that it's, yeah, I see what you mean here. Yeah, because it's a JSON request. Laravel is going to return the response code that implies that there is a validation error, which is 422. When we were not using a JSON request here and we're sending a delete HTTP request, it was returning 302, which is for HTTP found, right? Which means that the resource, it's just saying that the resource was found. What we want to do here is verify or make sure that the response code returned implies that there is a validation error. So thank you, Mitchell, for pointing at this to me. Assert unprocessable. Assert unprocessable instead of this. Oh, nice little helper here. Thank you, Adrian, for pointing this. All right, I think we are good here. We are done with everything that's related to creating, updating, and deleting and filtering offices, searching through offices. Now, the missing part that's related to offices is attaching photos and allowing a photo to become, or users to choose a photo to become a featured photo, and deleting a photo from the collection of photos. But we don't have time, unfortunately, to work on this in this stream, so we will move it to the next stream. In the next stream, we will work on updating or managing photos for offices, and then we will jump to listing reservations, making reservations, and canceling reservations. One thing that we need to take care of for the next stream as well is to make sure we can identify who is the admin. So we will need to clean this. I just put it like this so we don't have time to work on this part in this stream, but in the next stream, before we work on anything, we need to add another todo that says make sure or identify who an admin is by adding an isAdmin attribute to the users table. All right, I think that's it. Any questions? Any ideas when the next stream will be? I'm not sure, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Honestly, I think I want to do this more and have these sessions more than just 1 hour, just to finish more things faster, because while working while streaming, I have to explain things, I have to answer questions, so it's taking me a lot of time. Probably this application I would have built in 6 to 8 hours, just continuous 6 to 8 hour session, or just if you say it a work day, I would have finished this application in a single work day, but it's taking me long because I am interacting with you guys and we are discussing things, doing refactoring and such. My way of building application is the spike and stabilize. I work really fast, write the worst code that works, and write tests that cover this code to make sure that I am not breaking anything, or I will not break anything in the future. And then after that, I work on stabilizing the application, extract things, abstract things, refactor, look into the database performance and these kind of things. If the application is huge, of course I do it in little chunks. So I work on something, spike, stabilize the thing, move to the next part, spike and stabilize. But since this is a really small application, I would have worked on it on a spike, in an 8-hour spike or 6-hour spike, and then stabilized it in 2 to 3 hours to finish the entire application. But because people have jobs, like you have other things to do, I have other things to do, it's hard to do it in a very long stream. It will be boring as well. So I'm doing this in little chunks. Next time, or the next stream, maybe it will be on Wednesday or Thursday, I will let you know. Now, I think we don't have any questions. Please send me this cap. I'm sorry that it was a limited edition cap during Laracon and I was able to purchase it real quick, but it's now gone. You can't purchase it anymore, so I'm sorry about that. Where to find the first 2 episodes? You can find it on the YouTube channel, the Laravel official YouTube channel. Alright, so no more questions. Thank you guys, that was a productive session. We worked on a lot of things. I didn't expect that we finished the delete office part as well, but we did that. The missing part now that's related to offices is attaching photos. That's the thing that we are going to work on in the next stream, and then we will move to dealing with reservations and everything that are around them. Thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you on the next stream. Have a good day.